Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Kelly, and I'm so glad that you're here for the Perfect Day release video hop. Make sure you check out the description box below for all the details, including instructions for the hop, information about the giveaways that we're doing, where to hop to next, and links to all the products used in today's video. So let's jump right into today's card. I'm creating a seashore card with the Lovely Layers seashore dies. I am kind of puzzle piecing my die cuts back into the negative space, and those are stuck down onto just an inexpensive sticky mat. Now, I'm using real seashells as my inspiration for colors and where to place the colors onto my Lovely Layers seashore seashells. That's a tongue twister. But I'm starting out with saltwater taffy. That's the darker kind of peachy coral color there. And then I'm blending in tattered rose into that. And so I'm just using some little finger daubers to add the color right onto my die cuts. And then once I get that, I'm going to choose a color that goes with this kind of yellowy, creamy tan color, and that is Antique Linen. I'm going to sponge on this color a little bit darker on the top where all that seashell kind of gathers together and swirls around, and then lighter in areas where it goes down into the other parts of that seashell. Now, what's so cool about the Lovely Layers dies is they have that wonderful embossing detail. Now, all the embossing is what's going to show when you stack your seashells together. So you can see all the beautiful embossing there. The flat parts of those die cuts are not going to show when you glue your layers together. So there's really no need to spend a lot of time blending on ink and making those flat parts look pretty because they're not going to show when you add it all together. So I wanted to darken up some parts of my seashells, and so I added a little bit of gathered twigs. You can see where that's added on there in certain areas. And to add even more texture, I spritzed on some water, and I'm taking a nubby cloth and dabbing that on, and that's going to give me more of a variation in that color. It's going to kind of model or muddle around those colors and make them look swirly and beautiful, more like realistic seashells. Now, if your cloth takes off too much or your water takes off too much of that oxide ink, you can always add more later. So I'm going to stack these up now, and I'm ready to adhere these together. I'm pretty happy with the way that the ink blending and everything turned out. So I'm just going to take my Be Creative liquid adhesive and add together the layers. Now, these are super easy to layer together. Like I mentioned before, the flat parts of those die cuts that don't have any of the embossing details, those are going to get covered up. So I can just lay my die cuts one over the other and kind of line everything up and smush them together with my fingers. And you can see that finished seashell up in the top left hand corner. I love the way it turned out with the little spritzes of water and kind of dabbing that with a nubby cloth. So next I'm going to color in the seagrass, and I'm using bundled sage and that antique linen again. And again, I'm just rubbing over those areas. Now I am leaving the tips of that little shoot there to the left. I'm going to color that in with some antique linen as well. I'm going to take that there, and then to darken up these leaves just a little bit down towards the base, I'm going to take a sponge dauber that has rustic wilderness. So that's going to deepen up those greens. And then once I get that done, this is pretty much all done. So I can kind of set that aside. I'm going to add some little details later with my colored pencils, but that's done for now. Next, I'm going to go to my next seashell, and again, I'm going in with antique linen, and I'm only coloring in those areas that have the embossed details. I'm going to take some speckled egg and do the bottom part of this, so I like the mix of that antique linen and the blue of the speckled egg, and I'm giving that an all over brush of color. And then to add details into especially the bottom part or the blue part of this this seashell, I'm going to squish down that speckled egg ink and take a water brush. And I am going to just kind of dab it on into places. There's no fancy painting or anything with this. I'm just dabbing it on and kind of letting that puddle onto the paper. It's a little bit messy, but that is what, real seashells look like. Those colors kind of swirl together and look a little bit messy. And again, I'm going to dab that with the damp cloth just to add more texture and variation in the colors. I'm ready to adhere these together. So again, this seashell has the flat pieces and then the embossed pieces. So I'm just going to adhere those together, cover up all those flat pieces. Now, before the seashell was all done, I take some of the pigment off of that mat and I'm really going to wet it down and add lighter colors of blue. So I added more water or squeezed more water out of that water brush, and I'm adding lighter blue into the top part or the antique linen part of that seashell. You can see I'm really trying to take off a lot of that pigment, and then I'm just going to give that a brush all over to really blend those colors together and really marry those colors onto that seashell. Next, I'm going to take that tattered rose again and go over the base of the next seashell. And then I'm going to take mustard seed. Now, this is a really bright yellow, but I'm only going to do the very tip or the curly part of the top of the seashell. And then I'm going to blend that in with the antique linen. So it's going to give me some different yellows and creamy colors there. And then I also took the antique linen and blended that right down into that tattered rose color. Now, just to add a few little details here, especially on this seagrass, I'm taking a green colored pencil and I'm going just to the undersides of those fronds of grass to add some depth and dimension and shadows. I take a beigey color and I'm only going to run the colored pencil over those embossing lines, and that's just going to enhance all those wonderful details on those die cuts. Again, I'm going to take a light beige pencil and go over just a few of those embossing lines, and again, it's just going to darken those up and make those little details stand out even more. Next, I'm ready to kind of get the lay of the land here and decide how I want to arrange everything for my card. I'm going to use a stitched oval die, and I'm kind of arranging everything right there towards the bottom, but that background paper I'm using is just some of our pattern paper, and my finished card size is going to be 5 by 7. So I have cut out my cardstock here and got that ready to go. I take my score buddy and score that right down the center and fold this up, and then I'm going to use my Honeybee Stamps bone folder and really squeeze that fold down so it's nice and flat. And then I can kind of eyeball and line up my oval die. Now I'm going to run this through my die machine with my card base open so it only cuts out the top flap. So as you can see here, I pull back that oval. I'm going to give that one more little squeeze there, but it's only cut that shape out of the top part of my card base. And so if I open it up, it's still the nice white card base on the inside. The next thing I need to do is get my pattern paper ready. You can see how beautiful it's going to be inside that oval window. And I'm going to glue that pattern paper down to some white cardstock, and that's cut down to 5 by 7, so it's going to nestle into that card base perfectly. I add that onto the piece of white cardstock. You can see there how beautiful that's going to be in the window. Next, I can add that liquid adhesive onto the front flap of my card base, and I'm really layering on that liquid adhesive so my pattern paper stays inside. I set the panel inside, close the front door of my card panel, really squish everything down nicely, and then when I open this up, all you see is white cardstock on the inside. So that's why I used that white paper behind the pattern paper, because everything's nice and clean and finished looking on the inside. So the next thing I need to do now is stamp my sentiment. And this is from the Seize the Day sentiment set. And it says, friends are like seashells we collect along the way. And I thought that was perfect for these lovely layer seashells. And I'm just stamping that in the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And next I can arrange all those beautiful die cuts. So I'm going to start out with the tall seagrass. I'm adding liquid adhesive to that, and I love to use my tweezers to place everything onto my card. So I'm going to get that placed down into the bottom right hand corner. I hold it with one finger and then kind of tap it into place. I also love my tweezers, the pointy end, to kind of clean up any adhesive that might come out along the edges. Now for the seashells, the first two are the two that are going to go on the sides. I'm using the narrow foam strips because they're very thin. So I'm going to peel off the backer of those and then place one on each side, one on the left, and then another one on the right over to kind of cover up the base of that seagrass. Again, just adding a narrow and really thin foam strip down there. I'm going to nestle it right into the fronds or the leaves in that seagrass. And then for the middle seashell, I can add something a little bulkier. So our tabbed foam dots are a little thicker than that narrow foam tape. And so that's going to make that really pop up and stand out in the center. And then last but not least, I'm going to add some of our warm pearls. Now the color I've chosen out of this warm pearl set are kind of a champagne color. So they're going to be beautiful with all of those seashells. Now here is a look at the finished card, open and nice and clean on the inside. And then here's a really close-up view. You can see all the beautiful details in those seashells. I just love this lovely layer set. Thanks for joining me for this video hop, and I hope you check out that description box below. Leave me a comment and let you know what you're loving from this perfect day release, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.